Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjanishalaakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudirayet. In this session, we'll be discussing from the 11th, 12th and 13th verses of the 13th chapter of the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. This chapter is entitled Dhritarashtra Quits Home. The 11th verse, Apinaha Suhrudastata Bandhava Krishna Devataha Drishta Shrutava Yadavaha Swapuryam Sukhamasate. This is an inquiry made by Yudhishthira to Vidura. The meaning of this verse is, my uncle, you must have visited Dwaraka. In that holy place are our friends and well-wishers, the descendants of Yadu, who are always wrapped in the service of the Lord Sri Krishna. You might have seen them or heard about them. Are they all living happily in their abodes? So this was the inquiry by Yudhishthira. So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada points out the particular word Krishna Devata, Bandhavaha Krishna Devataha, the particular word Krishna Devata, that is those who are always wrapped in the service of Lord Krishna, is significant. The Yadavas and the Pandavas, who are always wrapped in the thought of the Lord Krishna and his different transcendental activities, were all pure devotees of the Lord like Vidura. Not only Vidura was a pure devotee, even the Yadavas and Pandavas, even while staying in a palace or staying at home, they were always wrapped in the thought of Lord Krishna and his different transcendental activities, and in this way they are also counted among pure devotees of the Lord. Vidura left home in order to devote himself completely to the service of the Lord. But the Pandavas and the Yadavas were always wrapped in the thought of Lord Krishna. Thus, there is no difference in their pure devotional qualities. Either remaining at home or leaving home, the real qualification of a pure devotee is to become wrapped in the thought of Krishna favorably. This is very important. To continuously absorb oneself in thinking of Krishna favorably. That is, what is the meaning of favorably becoming absorbed in the thought of Krishna? Knowing well that Lord Krishna is the absolute personality of Godhead. Not that Krishna is an ordinary person, or Krishna is an enemy, or Krishna is a like the example given here by Srila Prabhupada, Kamsa, Jarasandha, Shishupala and other demons like them were also always wrapped in thought of Lord Krishna, but they were absorbed in a different way, namely unfavorably. So favorably being absorbed in thought of Krishna is called Krishna consciousness. Unfavorably always thinking of Krishna like Kamsa, that is not Krishna consciousness. Now, these demons, they were absorbed in thought of Krishna unfavorably, or thinking him to be a powerful man only. See, the demons, they don't recognize Krishna to be the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They don't want to accept, or they think that they can compete with Krishna. This is a very, very big mistake. Therefore, Kamsa and Shishupala are not on the same level as pure devotees like Vidura, the Pandavas, and the Yadavas. Simply by thinking of Krishna always, anyone can get salvation. But to revive our dormant devotion to Krishna and to be transferred to his personal abode as his associate and engage in loving service is possible only for those who are absorbed in thinking of Krishna favorably, not unfavorably. Therefore, to think of Krishna in Krishna consciousness, it is described in the Bhagavad Gita that bhaktya tu ananyaya shaktya aham evam vidhorjuna, that always thinking of Krishna in loving devotion, in thought of Krishna in loving devotion, that is actually favorable, and that immediately qualifies one to actually be transferred to the spiritual world in personal association of Krishna. Maharaj Yudhishthira was also always wrapped in the thought of Lord Krishna and his associates at Dwaraka. Otherwise, he could not have asked all about them from Vidura. Maharaj Yudhishthira was therefore on the same level of devotion as Vidura, although engaged in the state affairs of the kingdom of the world. This is an instruction for us, that we may not be traveling to holy places, may not be living in a temple, but even living at home, if we are able to absorb our mind in Krishna consciousness through chanting Hare Krishna as far as possible, and gradually progressing to come to the stage of constantly thinking of Krishna in so many different ways. The art of constantly thinking of Krishna has to be learned from Srila Prabhupada by following his instructions, by reading his books, by associating with his devotees, by engaging in devotional service in varieties of ways recommended in the scriptures. We can be always thinking of Krishna and become attracted to Krishna to promote ourselves to the kingdom of Krishna in the spiritual world. At any time we can do that, we can immediately transfer ourselves to the spiritual world. The 12th verse, Ityukto dharmarajena sarvam tat samavarnayat yathanubhutam kramasho vina yadukula kshayam. The meaning of this verse is, thus being questioned by Maharaj Yudhishthira, Mahatma Vidura gradually described everything he had personally experienced except the news of the annihilation of the Yadu dynasty. Vidura told everything except that the Yadu dynasty was completely annihilated. That he did not tell. Why? In the 13th verse that is explained why. So 13th verse, Nanu apriyam durvishaham nrinam swayam upasthitam na avedayat sakaruno dukkhitan drashtum akshamaha. The meaning of this 13th verse is, Compassionate Mahatma Vidura could not stand to see the Pandavas distressed at any time. Therefore, he did not disclose this unpalatable and unbearable incident, because calamities come of their own accord. So, in this 13th verse, it's explained that Vidura did not disclose this unpalatable and unbearable incident of the annihilation of the Yadu dynasty to the Pandavas. Now, Srila Prabhupada says in the purport, according to Niti Shastra, civic laws, one should not speak an unpalatable truth to cause distress to others. The Niti Shastra says, Satyam bruyat priyam bruyat na bruyat satyam apriyam. Apriyam is unpalatable, even though it may be the truth. Apriyam satyam, unpalatable truth, one should not speak because that will cause distress to others. See how refined is Vedic culture, that you must speak the truth, but only that which is palatable. Why is it like this? Because distress comes upon us in its own way by the laws of nature. See, nobody can prevent natural calamities. They come of their own accord. Just like the example is given of a forest fire. Nobody goes to the forest to set fire to the trees. But when there is sometimes in blazing summer heat, when there is a wind blowing and there is friction between two dry bamboo pieces and there is a spark, that spark can ignite a fire in the dry bamboo in the blazing sun, and that fire will spread throughout the forest, a dense forest filled with dry bamboo plants. It can spread very quickly, and the fire will even aid the spreading of the fire. And a big portion of the forest can be entirely burnt away by the forest fire, and great destruction can happen. Now, this is not due to somebody going and setting fire to the dry bamboo. No, it happens of its own accord by arrangement of providence. Therefore, it is said here, distress comes upon us in its own way by the laws of nature. So, one should not aggravate it by propaganda. There is no need to speak of unpalatable truths if we want to not cause distress for people who are already distressed by natural calamities. So, this is the Niti Shastra. Satyam bruyat, priyam bruyat, na bruyat satyam apriyam. This is Niti Shastra. So, one should not aggravate the distress by propaganda. Further, Srila Prabhupada says, for a compassionate soul like Vidura, especially in his dealings with the beloved Pandavas, it was almost impossible to disclose an unpalatable piece of news like the annihilation of the Yadu dynasty. The Pandavas and the Yadavas, they were very closely related, both by family ties and because both were pure devotees of Krishna. So they always discussed about Krishna, always absorbed in thought of Krishna, as was said in the previous verse. So therefore, Vidura did not disclose this news of the annihilation of the Yadu dynasty, purposely refrained from it. And except that, he told everything else about his travels to the Pandavas. I'll stop here. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.